Great. So today we're going to cover the three doshas for understanding your child's tendencies and needs. We'll also look at dinacharya, which is daily routine from an Ayurvedic perspective, and understanding that it's not just a bunch of random rituals, but it's actually for supporting our physiology. Looking very quickly at holistic nutrition and some mindfulness and yoga practices to support healthy thought processes, just the value of yoga and meditation for kids. And then at the end, we'll just take a moment to stop and pause and maybe make some notes around, based on everything we've covered, what are some things that you can start implementing already? So just a little background on myself. So I am 38. I live in Australia on the beautiful sunny Gold Coast. I've been practicing yoga since I was 19 and teaching since I was 21. And I've worked in the yoga and wellness industry for the past 15 years now, comboing between running my own business, which is what this is all a part of, and also working for other companies and organizations in business operations, marketing, community, and project development, and things like that. I have a background in holistic health, particularly, I'm interested in health for a higher purpose. So you'll see a lot of my messaging and the work that I do is like, yes, health, but put it in the context of how is this going to help me on my yoga journey or on my, in higher thinking. So that's where I think sometimes people will make fun of me, or it seems like there's inconsistencies there, like, oh, you're having cake with extra icing? That doesn't fit in for an Ayurvedic wellness coach. And I'm like, a little bit every now and then is it's fun and you got to live. My constitution is an interesting one. Everyone always thinks that I'm pitta because I'm quite like go, go, go all the time, but I'm actually vata kapha. So creative, always in motion, high energy, but also kapha. So grounded, stable, very, very misses consistency, always doing the same thing, been in the same job now for more than 15 years. Love my routine, love systems and processes. I'm also an ox astrologically, Capricorn, and my family is Dutch too. So I don't know if you guys know much about stereotypical Dutch, but they're farmers, they're workers, Dutch blood, strong constitutions. So it's a little bit about me. My family background is background in military, working for the United Nations, and also in the magazine and media industry. And for me, Live to Serve Academy is a manifestation of my own background experiences and challenges I had with my own health and well-being. I discovered Ayurveda and yoga because I was diagnosed with a chronic eating disorder, hospitalized for it. That was like an 8-year journey, and also had PCOS and fertility challenges. Didn't have a period for 4 years. And there was help to a degree with the Western medical system. And there were things that just weren't adding up, and there was some missing pieces of the puzzle. And I searched and searched and searched, did a lot of looking research. This is when the internet was just coming out, actually. So I was actually going and sitting in the library, reading through books and yeah, when I came across Ayurveda and yoga, it was like, oh, everything. Okay, I can fill in the blanks and integrate them and make a fuller picture. And so my experience with that and how much it helped me is really what motivates me and drives me to do the work that I do now. And in saying that, I'm a big fan of Western and Eastern and always try to find a good balance or I guess an appropriate approach, not a dogmatic approach that it must be all holistic, or it must be all, this or that, or no medication. Like there's a time and a place for everything, and everyone's an individual experiencing their own circumstances. So the wonderful thing with Ayurveda and yoga and Western science techniques, approaches, they provide just a really nice, holistic, integrated approach. My background specifically with kids is, first of all, I'm a homeschooling mama of four. So I've homeschooled my kids right through kindy, right through primary school. I have three now that are homeschooling through high school years. My first job was coaching kids gymnastics as well. I did that for a few years as a teenager off the back of gymnastics. Wouldn't call it a career. It was serious love. The actual love of my life is gymnastics. So, so I had a bit of experience coaching gymnastics then. And when I discovered yoga and started teaching, the first job that I got was I just thought, oh my God, kids need this too. If I had access to yoga from a younger age, it may have prevented or slowed down a lot of the mental health challenges that I went through. So I started teaching in primary schools and kindies in Sydney when I was about 22, and have been teaching kids yoga ever since. The past couple of years, I've had more focus on kids yoga teacher training, empowering parents, carers, preschool workers. We've had even like childcare workers, pediatric dentists. We've had such a variety of people that work with children and can see the benefit of like, yes, kids need this. So I've been working mainly in that context and also running a program for a non-for-profit yoga school here in Australia, called Mindful Yoga in Schools. And so training teachers, setting up the programs, the infrastructure, and being able to get teachers out all across Australia. So I'm pretty passionate about helping kids. Everything that I'm going to share with you today is super practical. It's not rocket science, but it's stuff that we may overlook because it's quite simple, but can be an absolute game changer for kids with fostering a foundation in health and well-being. So a tiny little bit of an intro to Ayurveda and yoga, just in case you're not familiar with what Ayurveda is or what yoga is. Ayurveda is a science-based health system that supports us on our journey through life. It is quite holistic and it's used to improve and maintain physical, emotional, and mental health while simultaneously supporting us on our journey through life, higher thinking, helps to elevate our consciousness. So it's not just about applying therapeutics, it's also about helping somebody grow in their life. So it's almost like this really wonderful organic approach to personal development and growth. So like a lot of the treatments that you might get for a medical thing with Ayurveda will have the knock-on effect of clearing your mind, helping you see and think differently, helping you establish a much more mode of goodness lifestyle where you have, where you're able to change your perception. Often is referred to the sister science to yoga, and it aligns with yoga in many ways. The key thing that I think most people discover Ayurveda for is that it takes a very individualized whole person approach. So where we might go into the Western system and they say, oh, you have cancer, do this, this, and this. Ayurveda will go, okay, you've got cancer. Let's backtrack. How did you get here? Reverse engineer, look at the person's whole contextual life, their social situation, spirituality, their nutrition, maybe some traumatic events that led them to that point. And then it's not a one way treat or like a single approach for every single person. It's then looking at the unique balance of their doshas, and working with their metabolism, their metabolic blueprint. Yoga is the science of self-discovery, of understanding who am I in essence and what is my purpose. Yoga is a science that can be effectively applied whether the practitioner believes in the philosophy of yoga or not, and it offers a wide range of tools and practices that are accessible to all and is not limited to any age, sex, race, or religion. And the aim of different yoga processes is to help a person achieve harmony and a greater understanding of themselves and life. So, just to put things in context again, when we're talking about health, Vedic anatomy and physiology provides just a little bit more, I guess, context and broadness around what a holistic framework actually is. I think when we look at holistic as a term from Western medicine, it will say, okay, yes, it also includes nutrition and other allopathic treatments. But I personally feel like really the whole holistic approach is all encompassing of we are so much more than just our physical flesh. We actually, these human forms have within the human form, what is keeping this human body alive is the presence of the soul and the recognition of these two energies of gross matter and spiritual energy of the Atman or soul is something that's quite unique to yoga and Vedic science. Acknowledgement also of subtle energy. So not not believing that the brain and the mind is synonymous. Your brain exists, and yes, it may be hooked up to your mind and your nervous system and coordinating a lot of your bodily functioning and helping with, you know, coordinating things in throughout your life. But anyway, the mind is actually a sheath, a subtle body that exists and it encompasses around the soul, around the physical body. So in this respect, there is this subtle, energetic kind of approach to looking after someone as well. It's not just taking care of the body. There could be things going on a mental level, could be things going on a subtle level, could be things going on a spiritual level. And I think that that is one of the key things that yoga and Ayurveda as well to a degree enables us to support our children better is that much more full understanding of children's needs. They're not just their physical bodies. They have mental, mind kind of needs and things that specifically are required to regulate the mind and to keep the mind clear and pure and bright and luminous. And then same spiritually as well. I think one of the challenges that we see with modern life today is that we are trying to reduce or expand health into social and psychological and spiritual realms when the framework that the West is working with is actually just the physical body. But we're kind of like touching on some of these deeper or broader aspects of well-being that Western medicine doesn't really, or Western frameworks don't really know how to support. But yogic frameworks and Ayurveda to a degree as well do have an awareness and direct practices and principles and knowledge, wisdom for helping us understand these different components of the human body and how to work with them. And that in a nutshell is why having a base skill set or understanding of yoga and a little bit of understanding of Ayurveda as well can help us to support our children. And once you know it, you can't unsee it. That's the cool thing. It feels like a whole new language when you're learning it, and it feels like a lot when it's new. But once you start to learn it and grasp it, you can't unsee this bigger picture of the human form of life, of, seeing it in your child as well. So it gives you a much more to work with. And it's kind of liberating in that sense. It's like, oh, finally, I feel like I have all the pieces of the puzzle, not just like something's missing. Why is my child unhappy? Why is my child always unregulated? I think Ayurveda and yoga can help to fill those gaps. So to put things in context as well of why we would want to know more about Ayurveda and yoga, why would we want to know more about how to care for our children? Some of the current challenges would be the current state of society. So we're looking at, or you may have experienced this yourself, increased pace of life and living, increased tech usage, and increased demands on parents and carers as well, because our traditional lifestyle where the father was at home taking the mother was at home taking care of the family and the father went out to work. Now both work to try and keep up with the costs of life, and in most cases, or there's just greater demands on what children should have available to them as well. So even getting them to sports, getting them to extracurricular activities, getting them to social situations. It just seems to be like there's a lot of demand on carers to take care of their children. So we're stressed ourselves, trying to keep up with everything. Generally, children spend less time in nature, less time offline. A massive generalization. It's not speaking of everyone, but generally speaking, that's the trend that we're seeing. Increased access to convenient and processed foods. So, as convenience foods have, increased in accessibility over the years, it means that we're all eating more of those processed foods, which do impact our health and our mental well-being. Kids may be more sedentary as a result of increased tech use and increased educational demands, less time with family, and it seems to be that there's less being raised by the village. More and more, we see families living almost isolated, not necessarily isolated completely, but not necessarily close to aunties, grandmas, grandparents. And that extended village is what aids carers and parents to have that additional support and for children to feel like there's somebody present with them more of the day. More time spent on social media, and which means social media has so many impacts and implications, and that's not what this webinar is about. But do you remember in the schoolyard when you were young and you felt the judgment or criticism of other school kids? It burns. Or if you felt even just in our innocent, immature nature that, oh, these people have so much more than me, I don't have enough. So compound that over scrolling all day or for hours a day and seeing just like an incredibly high amount of that on repeat over and over again, and bullying, online bullying as well. Children are taking on so much more and having so much more exposure to things that can cause anxiety and mental instability and just pain, just suffering and pain in different ways as well. Yes, there are some good positive aspects of social media, but generally speaking, it always comes with this undertone of anxiety. We are generally, kids are perhaps a little bit more imbalanced due to these anxiety provoking lifestyles, perhaps have less coping or stress management skills, and that can be coming from parents too. I'm cusp millennial, like an older millennial, and was present for the introduction of the internet, present for the introduction of smartphones. And hey, we were never given skills to cope with that. And we've probably not been able to give our younger generation skills to cope so well because we're still figuring it out ourselves. So, anyway, these are all just different contributing factors. And then finally, too, there's a high demand on therapy and mental health support for things that could be, as I mentioned earlier, social or spiritual. It could be physiological, but there seems to be quite a lot of demand on therapy being the solution, when that is just one way to approach anxiety, mental health issues, physiological challenges. It's only a small part. So moving on from that, let me know if you have anything to contribute to that as well. Any other social challenges that you're seeing with children today? So another thing to look at and mention is health and well-being contributing factors. So this is okay. So now we're opening up the conversation around, okay, so what do we need to know about what impacts our children other than those social contextual things with their health and well-being? There are physiological factors that we can support with healthy living. So if your child has blood sugars that are like a roller coaster because they've been eating sugary things, no protein, no whole foods, and then they go and then they crash afterwards, and then they have that crash, so they have another sugary thing or another high carbohydrate imbalanced meal, high glycemic index. Your child might be going like this with blood sugars, and that affects their mood. That will make their mood go like this. Done over a long period of time, you might end up with a moody child, and it may be due to nutrition. That also, over a longer period of time, can impact their hormones because your blood sugars and your hormones align. So, if your blood sugars are imbalanced over a long period of time, riding that roller coaster, hormones start to go out. So then moods for all the females on the call, you would experience the fluctuations in hormones throughout the month. And it changes your whole world. It colors your whole perception. But that can be happening to our children before hormones, like before puberty hits, due to nutritional factors. It can affect their metabolism. It can affect their metabolism to the point where they're not digesting and assimilating well. If their metabolism is a little bit out, they might experience weight gain. They might experience even adolescent kind of burnout as well if they're doing sports or if there's a high demand on them academic wise or from family or social pressures. So all these things can get thrown out if they're experiencing anxiety or disruptions to their blood sugars and their circadian rhythm is out, then their sleep cycles will be out, which also impacts hormones, which also has them reaching for quick sugary foods and then adding to that cycle of blood sugars being on a roller coaster. So all of this then in an Ayurvedic perspective or terminology can create ama, which is a slimy kind of a film that builds up in the tissues. It builds up in the digestive system first and then gets distributed out at later stages, gets distributed out into the bloodstream. And that's when kids can start to feel fatigue and just general grogginess, moodiness. So it can be this domino effect of when we are living a little bit unregulated, the dominoes start falling and toppling one another. Another factor that may contribute to your child's state is the balance of their doshas, which we're going to look at in a moment, and also the mahagunas, so environmental and subtle energetics that are influencing whether they're a little bit more sluggish, inert, moody, grumpy, down, self-absorbed, whether they're a little bit more active and rajasic, a bit more motive passion driven, ambitious, but a little bit self-absorbed in the way that they're driven to do their thing and nothing's ever good enough. Or if they're living a pretty wholesome lifestyle, pretty grounded, very regulated, wholesome, healthy foods, then that's when they might be less hindered by their mind and a little bit more firmly planted in a state of clarity of mind and a regulated lifestyle and feeling just generally good, which is where we want all our kids to be, right? Okay, so let's talk about the three doshas for understanding your child's tendencies. So I'm just going to touch on them here, just for the sake of keeping time. Um, and in your notes that you were downloaded, you have a much more comprehensive cheat sheet for Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And when you're learning about the doshas, don't expect to grasp them all at once. But it's really interesting to learn about. And I think the easiest way to learn about them is to learn them through the lens of understanding yourself and your loved ones. So the people closest to you, including your children, yourself, your partner, your best friends. But know that we all have all three doshas. So when we're working with the doshas, really what we want to do is reduce the dosha that is the highest, that is causing us the most grief and imbalance. And that can change throughout different periods of your life. That can also change due to environmental factors. It could be just for a short period of time when you're working in a particular environment. One of the doshas kind of goes up according to the situation, and then it may naturally go down when you reacclimatize to your regular environment. So it's important not to get fixated on what's my dosha. Some people will have a really clear genetic predisposition to one of the doshas. Most people are generally bi-dosha, and you'll see that they fluctuate throughout anyway, throughout your lifetime. So before we start talking about the doshas individually, the key thing to remember, and this will be like, if there's one thing that you take away in learning about the doshas, this will serve you so well. It is that like increases like and opposites create balance. So if you're feeling hot and flustered, and then you start getting acid reflux because you've got so much heat in your body. You're trying to eat, but oh, everything's burning and it's coming back up. There's obviously too much heat in your body. There's an excessive amount of heat. So then, if you're going to go out in the middle of the day and do a high intensity interval training workout, what do you think the result would be in your physiology? You'd be hotter. You'd be more fired up. Your mental state would be like feeling all the hot emotions and feelings, irritability, hot temper. So you have then added more of the same quality. And what have you got? An increase in the quality. versus, okay, you're feeling really hot and flustered, you're getting acid reflux. I've identified that there's a bit of heat in my body. What can I do to create a bit of balance? And that might be anything that's cooling. So taking a cooling peppermint tea, going and sitting in the shade, doing some cooling breath work and meditation. All of a sudden it's taken the edge off. All of a sudden your physiology can relax. Your digestive system goes into rest and digest state. You're able to actually metabolize your food. And so it's really common sense. I just do not overthink it. It is exactly as simple as that. And we do this all the time. We have the natural inclination to do it. If you go outside and it's freezing cold, you come back inside and turn the heater on, or you put a jacket on, or you put a jacket on to go out in the cold so that you stay in a moderate temperature. When we're running a bath, you'll run a hot and cold, two opposites, bringing them just into a balanced temperature to have that ideal state. And we do it with wet and dry as well. If a cake is too dry, you add more moisture, like milk or water, to give it the right consistency. So we already have that natural intelligence. It's just learning to apply that framework to our daily lives as well. So I'll mention some examples as we go in relation to each of the doshas. So Vata has a, generally speaking, smaller frame, narrower, thinner bones, lighter by nature, but also lighter in the mind. So always in motion, tendency for scattered thoughts, but in a healthy context that can be great for creativity, great for intuition and being able to manage multiple things at once. In their digestive system, when it comes to, like, say your child is a bit more Vata dominant, um, knowing that they have typically a variable metabolism. So they might be your picky eaters. If you have a picky eater, it might actually because they don't have the vocabulary to express, or they don't have the health literacy to express to you that, oh, I ate that yesterday and it made my tummy hurt, or it made me really gassy and bloated. Um, but they might eat it another day and it's completely fine and you don't hear any complaints from them. And you think, oh, they're so picky. It must be a mental thing. Actually, Vata types do have variable metabolism. So it can create inconsistencies in their mood, in what they will choose to eat one day versus what they'll choose to eat on a different day. They tend to digest pretty quickly. However, their digestive tract can be a little bit dry, so they might suffer things like gas, bloating, and constipation. Um, they tend to be less inclined towards food and they prefer to eat small amounts more frequently and can often forget to eat. But this isn't what's best for them. So if you have a picky child, if you have a Vata child that's like, oh, do want to eat this, I don't want to eat that, and they're a little bit fussy, and then also they don't want to eat heavy meals, they don't want to sit down long enough, they can't even sit still long enough to eat a meal. um, you're really robbing them of what's good for them if you let them go with their whims. So for children that are Vata types, helping them have warm, regular, nourishing meals, so 4 to 5 times a day, a good proper meal with ideally some, a balance between carbs, protein, a little bit of fats in it, however that might look. And that will help them to stay energetically balanced, metabolically pretty balanced, their blood sugar's pretty balanced, and it will help to keep their scatteredness and their flightiness and their fatigue as well to a minimum and keep them pretty steady and on track. And when you help your child stay balanced in that way, you'll see less of the shadow sides of the doshas and more of the positive aspects. So, if you have a child that is really Vata-ish, and they're scatterbrains and they can't remember, and then they get moody and they get irritable and they seem tired and all that kind of thing, but making sure that they have regulation, solid routine to help keep that on track, and then you'll notice that motion and that ability for high level thinking and fast thoughts and being able to manage a lot will be channeled into or will manifest as creativity, like healthy, happy creativity, highly organized, very social, balanced social, lots of friends. But when it's out of balance, that's when you start to notice the struggles. So, to help them, maintaining a solid routine, warm grounding foods, consistent self-care regime, which might just be like a regular exercise, whatever sports your child likes to do, or even it's just going for a walk or a walk at the beach or a walk in the forest. I make my kids walk around the block in the morning just to make sure they do something. Also, daily meditation, if possible, even if it's listening to mantra meditation or engaging in some kirtan. For older kids, they could be doing some rounds of japa meditation, which we'll talk about at the end. Um, and then, so generally speaking, if you're kind of, I would say, character typing, dosha typing, your child is vata type. These are the key things to focus on to have them in those positive aspects of their dosha. Then we have pitta, which is more of the medium, middle dosha. Um, tend to be able to manifest whatever they think or like build muscle and maintain their weight if that's what they're focused on. If they don't focus on it, they can very easily overeat because they do love their food. They have a strong metabolism. They're the kids that if they miss a meal, they get hangry. If they miss a meal, they get irritable. They'll have a breakdown. They need food. So so the cool thing about knowing about the doshas is that you think your child is like, oh my God, why are they like this? And then you learn about the doshas and you're like, okay, it's a thing. It's a dosha type. So pitta, they tend to be like a prominent jawline, um, Brad Pitt looking, Jennifer Aniston looking, tend to have leadership skills naturally, um, warmth as well, because pitta is a dosha based on heat. When they're in excess, they're angry, they're irritable, they say sharp things where you think, was that sassy and a joke, or were they just being really rude? But when they're in their balanced state, they're very warm, very social, quite balanced, able to just take on the world. So Pitta has strong metabolism and digestion. Usually with Pitta kids, you don't have any issues with them complaining about what they're eating. They don't tend to have any bloating or issues like that. If anything, it will be acid reflux. Um, but generally speaking, they can eat anything. They will eat anything. They want to eat everything, and their metabolism can handle it. So if they're sporty as well, which quite often they are, make sure they're fed well, and that will keep their mind, nice and balanced. They tend to digest quickly. And if you have younger children, I still ask my kids occasionally privately about their stool, just every 3 months or so. I just remind them, like, if you ever notice this in your stool, if it's too loose, if it's diarrhea, if you're constipated, because then I know how to change their diet to relieve them of that, or I know how to talk them through some whatever anxiety or emotional experience they're having, because your stool is a reflection of your digestive system, and your digestive system is linked to your mental state. So, so pitta types may tend to experience excess heat in their digestive system, which can lead to diarrhea and loose stools. Experience extreme hunger if food is delayed, often following rigid eating patterns. They eat regularly because they have to. Their body is asking for food. They get hungry. Generally maintain an average frame, neither thin nor overweight, and prone to hyperacidity. So, things you can do to help them stay balanced is help them to take rest and help them to develop a healthy relationship with their school, with their sport, with their passions and pursuits. Pitta types tend to get really fixated on something, and they're wired to achieve, and they're wired to create and transform. So it's in their nature to do so. So if you have a child that's like fiercely goal driven like that, it's just important to let them do their thing, but support them with self-care, support them with dialogue around this, your success in this isn't who you are. Your success and your work ethic isn't who you are. Here's some other ways that I love and support you. Here's some other ways you can form your identity as well so that they don't get completely wrapped up in overworking. Giving them cool, fresh, whole foods, restorative self-care regimes. So they might like to do all the sports, but trying to include something nice that's a little bit more cooling, maybe even if it's just casual swimming, surfing, things that are a little bit more relaxed and play-based to help take the edge off the competitiveness that they naturally have. And of course, daily meditation. And then finally, we have Kapha dosha. So Kapha, we have Vata is small frame, Pitta is medium frame, Kapha is large frame. And it doesn't mean that they're overweight or have increased fat. They have thicker, sturdier bones. They have a broader frame with shoulder width, with hip width. So in that context as well, with the thicker bones, with the bigger body, they also have greater capacity for immunity as well. They tend to get sick less. They tend to get thrown off balance less. So quite sturdy constitutions. They tend to be more of your moon face, big cow eyes, big $1 million smile, a little bit more curvy by nature, but can still be muscular. But you'll notice the difference too with the different doshas. Vata type tend to have that long, lean, striated kind of muscle, like long bones, long limbs, long muscle tone. Um, Pitta types tend to have your more like if you were going to draw a cartoon character who had muscles, it's just like the picturesque muscle with a little bit angular. Kafirs tend to have more of that rounder, soft-edged, thick muscle. So it looks a little bit rounder and fuller with less sharp edges and more thicker skinned as well. So you don't see the muscle as being as striated or as athletic looking, so to speak. But often they'll end up being endurance runners, basketball players, football players. Even now, I see a lot of Kapha types in gymnastics as well, with the way that the culture of the sport has changed. They have the endurance, they have the strength, they have the mental stability to be able to compete and challenge themselves at that level and maintain it. So Kaphas have the slowest metabolism of all the doshas, but they do have consistent digestion and also really strong digestion. But unfortunately for Kaphas, they tend to hold weight more than the other dosha types. So they might hold more water and fluids. You might know it, maybe not so much like maybe don't relate this to your children, but you might notice in yourself or with your friends, you've joked about, oh, they can eat whatever they want. I just look at a piece of cake and I gain weight. Like that would be the tone or like the kind of play on kapha dosha is that they can eat um, the same amount of food but hold more weight from it. So kapha dosha, they don't actually need as much food because they're born with this inherent endurance and stamina, which is really wonderful. And because their metabolism is a little bit slower, they do tend to, yeah, gain weight, put on weight. So if you have kapha kids, it's just about keeping their food really warm, really nourishing, watching their tendency for love of food. Kaphas are notorious for food being their love language, like not just healthy food, but like comfort food. And it's funny because it's of the same quality. And that's one of the funny little quirks with the doshas is the doshas will crave qualities that are the same. So that's the hard thing about choosing balance. Vatas who are light and in motion by nature and need grounding, they crave rice crackers, they want light cold salads, they want anything that helps them keep feeling light, but that's not the ideal thing for them. And pitta types tend to love coffee, spicy Thai foods, hot chilies, and they're all the things that make their heat go more. Halfers who by nature kind of like slow, grounded, they have more tissue, more fat lipids and stuff. They tend to love comfort foods. They love their like potatoes, berries, wheat, all that kind of stuff that is just by nature heavier. And it adds to imbalance if they overdo it with those things. So being mindful of overeating of the wrong foods, their nature too. It's not just from a food perspective. Kaphas are indulgent by nature. So it can be with luxurious clothing, it can be with wanting to holiday, with luxurious rest. Like it's just part of that the traits with kapha. But interestingly, to look at all the three different doshas too, it's why you might have children that experience life in such different ways, even though they're coming from the same parents or being cared for in a similar manner. You're feeding them the same foods and they're all having different experiences. So it's really interesting to look at it from that perspective that they're not built the same. They are actually have some fundamental differences based on the levels of their doshas. So what's balancing for kapha? Daily exercise, stimulation, getting them going, and that's going to relieve heaviness in their mind. It'll keep their body at a healthy weight. Warm, light foods, spices, and bitter greens to cut through any excess kapha. And daily meditation, of course. Does anyone have any questions on that as far as what you think your children, could you see your children in any of those categories? And did it help you make sense of why they behave the way that they do or their food choices? Because I think that's the best thing to take away from it is a depth in understanding of our loved ones, whether it's our kids, our partners, even ourselves too, is to not be judgmental that they experience life in a different way because they can't help it, you know? They are fundamentally wired differently. And this is the beauty of understanding Ayurveda from these principles is that we are all different. And I think with kids, don't you reckon it gets like sometimes you don't know whether to apply discipline and be like, just eat it? Or are they actually feeling digestive disruption? Are they actually not liking this food? And it's always hard to know, like, oh, but at least once we've gone through today's presentation, I think at least you'll have some tangible principles that you can apply in your family's life that allows you to make confident decisions around, no, here's where I'm going to be hard with my kids around, no, this is what's expected. This is what's going to help you stay healthy and well. And here are some areas where we can be a little bit flexible and you can make your own decisions. So I'm just going to touch on it here, but I do have another whole session on this that you might find interesting. I'll link it in the follow-up email so that you've got it there to have a look at on Ayurvedic psychology. It's too big of a topic to cover in what we're talking about today. So I'll just add a supplementary resource. But another contributing factor to how our children feel and experience life and the decisions that they make, the actions that they engage in is this understanding of the universal law of the Mahagunas or Triguna, as it's understood or called in Ayurveda. So in yoga, the Mahagunas are the three dominating energies of material nature. There's tamas, which is the mode of ignorance, rajas, which is the mode of passion, and sattva, which is the mode of goodness. So rajas and tamas are considered energetics that can, I was going to say considered like a dosha, disrupt. They are disruptive by nature, but in the right dosage, in the right context, they can be helpful and actually help us go through our daily life and our circadian rhythm in a productive manner. But what we ideally want to help our children establish and what we should try and establish ourselves too is living life in a mode of goodness or dominant mode of goodness manner. So mode of goodness is the energy of clarity, luminosity, balance, compassion for others, environmentally aware. And from this place, you're more able to see things as they really are. You're more able to choose balance versus choosing what my senses desire, more likely to make good decisions in life. And the trajectory of that means that your children are less likely to want to do drugs, play video games, eat junk food. You know, when they're in that more mode of goodness state, they're more likely to engage in life in a healthy, productive manner. So it actually does start with our environment and what we offer our children at home, and the spaces that we provide for them in the areas that we care for them. So so with tamas, a tamasic environment would be living out of alignment with nature, going to bed really, really late at night, waking up really, really late, eating all kinds of processed foods, junk foods, talking, gossiping about people, not caring about what anyone else thinks, just doing what's right for me, even if it's to my own detriment, maybe doing intoxicants, maybe playing video games all day. There's some really gross extreme examples, but a lot of people do live like that these days, and they wonder why they have a mental health disorder. They wonder why they're not feeling happy. But the more we engage in tamasic activities, the more we will experience qualities of tamas, of inertia, delusion, ignorance. The more we engage in rajasic activities, so really pursuing what do I want to do? What are my goals? Passionately going towards that, eating and consuming stimulants like coffee, having our goals, working in a corporate setting and go, go, go all the time and trying to amass material things. That's going to have us wanting more of that and engaging more in that energy. It makes it hard to sleep. You're always feeling a bit unrest. Anytime you achieve a material goal, it's never quite enough. On to the next thing. So it's good to have a little bit of that to be able to get stuff done and to strive, for healthy goals, helps you get into action. But if your life is dominant rajas, that's when it's like anxiety, a bit of depression, panic, just like pushing through, finding it hard to maintain healthy, balanced relationships. So what we ideally want to set up our kids for is a mode of goodness lifestyle where they live in a regulated manner, going to bed on time, waking up on time. They get a decent amount of sleep each night. They're eating predominantly wholesome vegetarian foods. They are engaging in learning and content activities that are actually good and helpful and help to develop the mind, develop skills, healthy relationships as well. So making sure that our kids are engaged socially in a way that is healthy. So it might be through sporting activities, it might be through other parents that you know that are parenting in the same way. It could be through yoga classes, it could be going out in nature and being in that environment, all help to promote the mode of goodness, clarity of mind, feeling grounded, feeling sensible, and able to maintain life's responsibilities without this kind of like pending anxiety, pending doom, self-doubt, and all of that sort of stuff that can cloud the mind. So your the environment and the activities that we raise our children in plays into their mental state and their decision-making process. So do not underestimate how important your environment is for your kids, whether that's kids that you're caring for in a professional sense or in a yoga class or in the home. Be aware of what they're exposing their minds to, be aware of what they're watching, be aware of how much time they spend on social media or on tablets or on tech in general. Be aware of the conversations that they're having and the company that they're keeping, what they're eating. All of that stuff adds up to how they experience their life and how they're feeling. Holistic nutrition. So, this is a massive topic again, but I personally love to come from a place of everybody does what they can with what they have. If we're all just doing our best, we're all in different socioeconomic statuses, we all have different access to healthy food. We all have different contributing and contributing factors and competing priorities as to what we can make available to our children. So I don't want to share or talk too much about your kids should eat this. It's more about, hey, here's some principles. And here are some things that you can consider that you can kind of integrate into your kids' lives. Because I got 4 kids. And they've got cousins, and I've got best friends that have a lot of kids. I always have kids in my house, and I know everybody's different. So what one kid will happily eat that's healthy 3 other kids in the room absolutely will not, will never, not even going to smell it, cannot, absolutely not. So I don't want to come in hot and be like, your kid should be eating this, and this healthy foods and these lentils and make sure they have kitchery. Like some kids just won't. I totally get that. So in the case of where your children aren't able to fully eat wholesome, organic, sattvic food all the time, there's actually some principles that can really support them. So even if it's not what they're eating, but how they're eating, that's also a really important factor that we can actually support them with. So how they're eating food in the wrong order when distracted decreases Agni. So making sure that they're eating in a way that's logical. So if you give your kids a really heavy cooked meal and then you give them some fruits to ferment afterwards, they might get gas, they might get bloating, it might cause pain in their tummy. So, generally speaking, Ayurvedically, they say eat the lightest, easiest to digest foods first, and then that can flow through the digestive system while the heavier foods are following along. When we eat, this is my number one thing. Regulated meal times can improve digestion, supports balanced blood sugars, energy, and mood, helps to keep metabolism nice and balanced as well. And that really impacts their mental state. So, so important. So, eating regularly, we'll talk about that in a moment with Dinacharya, but morning, noon, and night are the bases. And then in between morning, noon, and night, kids should have a small snack as needed. Where we eat, so eating in a calm environment with good company, so off devices, not watching something, even if they just have to sit and eat their food, even if there's not good company there talking to them, sitting and eating your meal. So you're tasting your food, you're able to tune into the bodily cues of when I feel full or do I need more, not having your mind elsewhere, because that can actually, having kids eat mindlessly while they're tuned into something else, can actually set them up for teen and adult years of doing that where you're not controlling what they're eating and they just eat and eat and eat and it can cause unnecessary weight gain and they don't even realize it. They don't know why they eat so much, but that's just always been the way is that they're not actually aware of what they're eating. How much we eat, so overeating can actually dampen and decrease our digestive capacity, also just excess calories that the body doesn't need. What we eat, so the kind of food eaten, so just trying to keep it as fresh and whole food based as possible. This is not a scientific diagram, obviously, but this is just a little bit of a diagram to show, because I personally love to see things visually, that your diet and your kids' diet should be predominantly sattvic foods. And that is whole food, vegetarian, grains, healthy fats, whole milk products, fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, pulses, legumes, so many different things you can do with those types of foods. And then less than that, like just occasionally throughout the week, adding a bit of fun, spicy type foods, adding a bit of stuff that is a little bit more, occasional foods like chilies. Obviously, kids not having coffee and tea so much, but um, maybe going into teen years if they're having hot chocolates and things like that. Eating chocolate shouldn't be an everyday thing, it should be an occasional thing. And then your tamasic foods. I'm personally a vegetarian, so if you can just imagine these are all veggie meats here. But traditionally, and to be more like, okay, give me a number of how often should we have a treat. When I did my Ayurveda training, I was told once every 10 days, have a dessert or a treat. And that for me was like, oh, my whole life has been a lie. I was like a treat in my lunchbox every day, and then we had dessert, but like if you're talking about optimal health and well-being, once every 10 days, okay? So let's bring that back into context and perspective of what we might like to uphold in our weeks, in our modern context. So maybe steering away from having the daily treats and snacks. And if you are going to give your children a treat, can it be a whole food based treat like a yummy sweet berry based smoothie or a mango smoothie that has some honey in it? Maybe it's got some fresh medjool dates. So it feels really delicious and yummy and sweet. You could do hot chocolates, cacao. You could do, protein balls. You could do fruit platters. You could do anything that is using whole foods, and saving those yummy tamasic treats for once a week or just on a weekend, on a Saturday and Sunday on a weekend, or at a social outing during the week, whatever it might be. But trying to think and putting it into perspective. Um, if children have 5 meals a day and 2 of those meals are junky snack treat foods, that's a significant amount of food each week that is forming the cells of their bodies and is supporting their mental state that is a little bit tamasic. So, or is tamasic. So just trying to put things into perspective and trying to choose healthy, yummy treats as needed, and keeping those tamasic sort of processed foods down to a minimum of maybe like two times per week. And noticing when you do that, how your child changes, how their mental state changes, how their confidence and how they feel in their body changes. Because I don't know, I just like to think of things too with kids that why would we do to kids what we wouldn't do to ourselves? So if you feel gross from eating chocolate and junk food every day and watching mindless TV for hours on end while while somebody else is working next to you, like how's your child going to feel doing those sorts of activities? So being really mindful about, okay, what would make me feel good? And how can I role model that and offer that to my child as well? So how good do we feel when we eat a whole food based healthy diet? And how yummy are fun treats when we're only having it once or twice a week versus when we're having it every day and it's kind of like you just consume it and it's gone and it loses that specialness. So yeah, just seeing how that goes. I know for my kids too. For my kids, give them a limited amount of access to processed foods. Usually it's on weekends, and occasionally I'll spoil them and give them more, and they indulge. And at the end of it, they're like, I ate too much. I feel sick. I don't want to do that again. I need to eat something. Can you make something healthy? Can you make some veggies for dinner? And the good thing about that is that I know that they have a tolerance level to junk food or fun food. And that's part of what this lifestyle offers is the awareness, that feeling of a foundation of a sattvic lifestyle, so that when you start to stray from that, you do feel the imbalance. You do have this self-awareness system that allows you to go, oh, I've eaten too much. That doesn't feel so good. I need to stop or I won't do that again. Versus if you're living a more tamasic lifestyle, it's like that's the daily grind. And you don't know, you can't differentiate when enough is enough. And you continue to make the same impactful decisions over and over again, even though it's not ideal. So, Sattvic lifestyle helps to regulate the senses and it helps us to be more attuned to our body's needs and when we've overdone it as well, so that we can self correct. And if my kids can learn that, if more kids can learn that, all power to them. They will have such a great outlook on life and like life skill set to be able to manage themselves, manage their health and well-being because they know enough is enough. All right, talking about dinacharya. Who's heard of dinacharya and daily routine before? So, dinacharya is the traditional term used for daily routine in Ayurveda. But it's more than that. It's more than just having a routine, and it's more than just the rituals at each time of the day. Why dinacharya is so powerful and exciting and wonderful. It's I'm obsessed with dinacharya. Year after year, the more I apply it, the more I teach it, the more I offer it in my services. I'm like, this is amazing. Um, so our body has biorhythms that align with the rhythms of nature. And when you harmonize the two together, your physiology functions really well. So that's essentially what it's all about. If you misalign those biorhythms, your body undergoes or endures this ongoing prolonged stress. It learns to adapt, but it doesn't get to function with ease and grace in its optimal manner. So when you go, okay, body, I know you were designed to align with the circadian rhythm, and you bring your circadian or your rhythm in alignment with the circadian rhythm, you'll notice that things come a lot easier. You can fall asleep a lot easier. You sleep deeper. You wake up feeling more refreshed. Um, you wake up feeling hungry. You can evacuate in the morning, go to the toilet. You go into your day feeling energetic and clear and ready to work and ready to engage in activities or look after your children or whatever it is that you need to do. You enjoy your food. You metabolize well. Um, then when it gets to the evening routine, you naturally downregulate and you naturally want to go to bed between 9 and 10, and you do it all again, and it goes in this rhythm. So the cool thing about that is your body is actually designed to operate in that way. It's not just like, oh, here's another idea for an ideal routine. Like, no, this is the way that your body was designed to live. So the doshas are actually going through a cycle of becoming dominant in your body and in nature at these certain times of the day. And that's why certain rituals or activities align with these times of the day, forming dinacharya or an ideal Ayurvedic routine, daily routine. So between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., Vata is at play. Vata is dominant, which is why you might start to wake up at 4 a.m. and have light, loose, like light kind of creative kind of dreams as well. You might naturally wake up if you're in good health and good well-being and you're getting enough sleep and everything's, you might naturally wake up at around 5 or 6 a.m. And that's because the motion and the activity of that Vata being dominant helps to kind of wake up the body and you wake up. And also that motion helps with evacuation. You need to go to the toilet to do a number one and a number two. And that's part of the body. We're going to get to it at the end of the cycle. Having gone through detoxification processes overnight, Vata then comes in, is like, okay, and it's time to release it all out so that you're ready for a clean slate for the day ahead. 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. is Kapha time of the day where you're nice and grounded with Kapha energy. It's a really good time to exercise because you've got that stamina, the groundedness, and you also have the oiliness or the heaviness of Kapha dosha there so that you can go ahead and exercise. If you're trying to exercise during a Vata or Pitta time of the day, you might find that it makes you feel excessively hot. It makes you feel excessively, a little bit erratic. So ideally, this is why exercise is great in the morning because you've got the lubrication in your tissues and your digestive system for your body to be able to push yourself a little bit without it causing upset. And so the thing with Ayurveda too is that it may not cause you immediate upset, but again and again over a long period of time of doing things out of order or not in an ideal way, that's when our body starts to notice a bit of wear and tear or imbalance. So these are the optimal times based on the doshas and their functioning. And then in that time, you're preparing for the day, and then you'll get out of the gates at around 9, 10 o'clock, arrive at work, and then find yourself switching on at 10 a.m., being able to go strong until 2 p.m. And also with Pitta being the dominant dosha of this time of the day, that's when you have peak metabolism. So that's why it's recommended in Ayurveda you have your largest meal in the middle of the day because your digestive fire is just like, give it to me. I'll digest whatever you send my way. And another cool little note is on that is that your digestive fire aligns with the sun. So you just look to the sun to get a reflection on the state of your digestion. So if you look to the sun in the morning and it's like it's low and there's dampness in the air, it's kind of cool still. That's what's going on inside your gut. That's what's going on with your metabolism. Peak day, it's hot, it's bright, it's burning. Same with your gut. And then towards the end of the day, the sun is setting. When you go to have dinner, it's like, no, it's cool, it's dark, it's maybe a little bit damp again. That's also what's happening with your digestive fire. So, hence why we might have more easy to digest warm, light meals at morning and night, and a larger meal in the middle of the day. Then you might also find that around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you lose that capacity to have deep work focus. And you go more to, you're a little bit more scattered, a little bit more social, want to go make a tea and chat with somebody by the cooler or by the kettle or phone some friends or finding yourself on social media all of a sudden. Vata has kicked in, and that helps you get through your last tasks of the day. It helps to get you home, make dinner, and then relax and eat. And then that 6 to 10 p.m., you go into Kapha mode, and you also have the natural influence of tamas in nature, where it's dark, healthy tamas. It's a natural part of nature that helps us fall into deep sleep. And you want to go to sleep by around, you want to utilize that kapha, heaviness, tamas of the dark setting in, the moon rising to be able to fall asleep because then, and this is why it's important to go to bed on time, when you go to bed on time and you're asleep, out of it, conked out, you're fully in rest and digest to the best of your ability. Your body then kicks in with fire, with pitta, for transformation. And what happens during that time is your body goes through this whole like cleanup process. It goes through internal transformation. It kind of works with all your internal organs to transform things in preparation and clear things out in preparation for resetting your system for tomorrow. So if you're awake during that time, if you are busy having a second wind from 11 o'clock to 1 a.m. and you're up and then you're trying to go to sleep, but you can't, you find that you're a little bit stimulated and you also have that pitta energy and it's outwardly focused instead of internally focused, you're robbing your body of that opportunity for the deep rest and digest and transformation that it requires to help keep your body function optimally. So this is why it's also for us, it's really important. And I think applying it, seeing it for ourselves, because it's really easy as an adult to get caught up with responsibilities or just the joy of living and wanting to stay up a bit later or to go with the flow throughout the day and you forget to eat lunch or you eat it a few hours late and then your two meals are close together and then you feel a bit stuffed when you're going to sleep, so you stay up later or exercising at random times throughout the day. You know, looking at it logically like this, it's kind of matter of fact and like, okay, well, if I can align myself with the day as much as possible, you'll feel the benefits. And then you'll see why it's so important for our children to have this very regulated approach to living to support optimal functioning. So it's not a made up routine. Here's a nice visual of it as well. Um, it's not a made up strong suggestion. It's kind of like a matter of fact. Well, this is what the doshas are doing throughout the day. If you align with it and get on board with it, you're going to experience the ease that it brings to your daily life, to your physiology. If you deviate from it, you might notice niggles, stresses, feeling a little bit out of balance. And if you do that over a long period of time, that's when you start to notice early signs of, you know, maybe little things popping up. Then you think, why is this happening? And sometimes it can be stemmed back to being a little bit dysregulated. Okay, so for your children, going back, sorry, just to nail that point in. Maybe you don't do all the activities, but helping them regulate their lifestyle, getting up at 7 a.m. Or thereabouts. If you've got kids that are early risers, so much the better. Getting them to bed at a regulated time, because that's where a good day starts, is going to bed on time, getting kids to bed on time, even if they read in bed for half an hour to help them wind down and then lights out by 9 p.m., depending on your kid's age. Might be earlier, it might be later. Having them have a good sleep at the ideal time and waking up with the sun. Um, Even if they don't get to exercise, everyone's schedule is different and people have school or maybe they're younger, etc. But regulating their meal times is something that we do have the power to do. So making sure that's something that you are looking out for and trying to moderate as best as possible. So regulated sleep times, regulated meal times, that will help to regulate their blood sugars, their metabolism, their moods so much. And a lot of the time, even working with adults, actually their mental instability, their mental challenges is coming from this lack of regulation in their lifestyle. And I don't even change what they eat. We just double down on focusing on regulating things and they become so much more calm, so much more easy to work with because they're able to see things differently. They're much more regulated in their moods. They're much more clear in their mind. And then they're able to take on another change, which might be changing what they're eating more whole foods, maybe starting to exercise. Okay, and so mindfulness and yoga practices to support healthy thought processes. So, with our kids, we want them to be able to feel confident in themselves, feel like they have a strong sense of self, outside of the influences of social media, of digital culture. Yes, we're all influenced by our friends and our social groups and influences, and that's completely fine. But I think we need to be really aware of kids these days have more influence than ever from people we don't even know. If they're allowed on tech and phones and social media, there's just so much influence on them, and helping them establish a sense of a clear mind and what thoughts are their own, or more of their own, I think is just like really is just the gold that we can give them. So yoga and meditation are fantastic for this. And I believe every adult, doesn't matter what your background is, we all have the capacity to give kids a little bit of support with yoga and meditation. Yes, ideally, like if we can have some training, which I'm going to share with you soon, that would be great. But don't underestimate even just sitting still and breathing with your kids, or listening to some mantra meditation together. Um, having them join in on your yoga practice, even if it's just for 4 or 5 yoga asanas. Don't underestimate how beneficial that is for them. So asana is the most recognized limb of the yoga system, but it's not yoga itself. It's one of the many physical practices that we utilize during our journey towards self-realization and loving union with the Supreme Soul. And when we practice yogasana, we explore the mind, the body, and your breath. We're also refining our awareness, and the connectedness of mind, body, and breath, and which helps us to master and discipline our mind and body and our senses, which we could all use as adults as well. But if we can introduce children to these techniques, it can help them have this inbuilt source of being able to regulate themselves. Asana is more than just physical exercise. It stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. So, rest and digest, relaxation helps them to draw away from external stimuli and drive, and actually go a little bit more internal. It opens up the channels of the body to support the free flow and balanced flow of prana, or life force and intelligence in the body. Um, and it helps with optimal functioning of all of our systems. It helps to create harmony between our subtle systems, energetic system, and your physical body. So it's so wonderful. It's more than just exercise. It's different to sport. When you can help kids actually start learning some of these practices, it's the energy work that's combined in asana that they just can't get anywhere else, really. It's pretty wonderful. And then the good thing about it too is that it's practiced in a non-competitive manner. So that's really wonderful for children too. Here are just some of the benefits of yoga and meditation for kids. Enhances flexibility, strength, and coordination. Teaches relaxation techniques to manage stress and anxiety. Encourages self-awareness and emotional resilience and regulation. Improves attention span and cognitive skills. Boosts self confidence and positive self image, promotes mutual respect, cooperation, and communication. I think that's a really big one as well for life skills. Fosters a healthy relationship and connection with the mind and body. Facilitates relaxation for better sleep patterns. Cultivates awareness of physical sensations and mental states, and offers a place of time out, withdrawal of the senses away from external stimuli and the world. And of course, there's much more than that, I'm sure. And specifically, the benefits of mantra meditation for children. Physically, it helps with stress reduction, which leads to less oxidative stress in the tissues. I don't know if you know this, but more and more research is coming out that affirms stress is the number one underlying cause for most lifestyle diseases, most diseases. It's really a big thing in physical health is stress. So being able to regulate and minimize and reduce stress is a really wonderful and important thing. Mentally and emotionally, it helps to purify the mind, helping to remove obstacles on the path of health and healing. Spiritually, it helps them to cultivate spiritual love and compassion. And socially, helps to have peace. Like being peaceful in ourselves is what helps to establish peaceful relationships. And they can be a peaceful influence on their friends and loved ones, peaceful influence in society as well. So, to wrap it all up, a summary of key points. There is so much more, but I hope this is intrigued you enough to go, "Ooh, if I can learn more about Ayurveda and yoga, it's going to help myself because you can learn it through your own application." And then just paying it forward to children because this shouldn't just be saved for or gatekept for adults. This should be for all ages. Remembering that every child is unique, so understanding the doshas can help us to understand our child's unique needs. Children thrive off healthy routine, as do adults, but helping your child establish a healthy routine, it's so important for their health and well-being. Even from a carer's perspective, it creates a solid foundation and structure for your day. So kids actually learn the routine and they know what's coming next. So they can actually start to have a little bit of autonomy in how the day rolls out because they know what is coming next. When you're chopping and changing all the time, or you're relaxed in the flow of the day and every day is different, kids don't know what's coming next and they can't take initiative to help support you in the day, to do things, to set the table, to start getting lunch ready, to get their book ready for bed, to start asking if they can go and take a bath or a shower. Routine is so wonderful on so many levels, and it's really empowering for children. Ayurveda lays out a daily routine to support optimal functioning and well-being. Whole foods, exercise, and hatha yoga support digestion, mental health and moods, energy, and relationships. So, health is not just about preventing disease, it's not just about looking vibrant. It's so much more than that. It really is something that can impact the way it really does impact the way that children show up in the world, in their relationships, internally as well, because I think um, there's a lot going on in our kids' minds that we don't know about. So we want them to have a good, healthy foundation that promotes healthy thought processes, that mode of goodness living approach to life. Simple yoga techniques can be part of your child's daily routine in order to support their physical, spiritual, and emotional well being. And the science of nature offers us some guidelines for giving children a structured, regulated lifestyle. The human body thrives off routine. So it's not just the dogma of kids should eat this and we should all be doing that and following lists and following dosha nutritional plans. That's not traditional Ayurveda. It's one aspect of Ayurveda, but getting back to nature and the way nature is designed, learning it, seeing it, grasping it, attuning to it, that's when we can truly start to apply Ayurveda and understand how to implement tools and wisdom and work with every individual, including ourselves, but also our children, in a non-dogmatic way, in a doing the best that we can in the circumstances that we have with the person that we're working with, because everybody's different, everybody's capacity, so every child's willingness to engage in certain activities, behaviors, foods, that's going to be different across the board as well. So taking away this pressure around this is how Ayurveda should look, or this is how yoga should look, looking at essentially what we want to offer to children and doing what we can to implement some of these principles and practices. Any questions or feedback or shares that from what we've been over today? Oop. So based on all of that, instead of going, okay, a big wellness strategy is going to be, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. What are three things that you will take away from today that you would like to implement? Might be with your child. It might actually be with yourself first because we learn from doing it ourselves first. So it might be that you create a wellness plan for yourself, but the flow-on effect is that you're role modeling that to your child. You setting a routine for yourself means that your child falls in sync with that routine. So therefore, it's for them. Um, it might be that you're going to add daily yoga or meditation to your life in some way, and your child benefits from that because they can join in with you as they like. But thinking about three things that you're, and it might also be that you want to do more learning around Ayurveda and yoga. And so popping that down that you're going to spend some more time doing some research, looking into it with more depth. I would love to hear at least one thing that you're going to take away from today's session, maybe pop it in the chat or feel free to unmute. My cat's just joined us. I wonder if you can hear his purring. It's not me being weird. More about Pitta Girl and understand why she gets so hangry. Yes, love it. Introduce more routine. Fantastic. I love it.
Hi, Sammy. That was wonderful. Thank you. It was just a really good reminder. And I used to do a lot more meditation, like specifically with the children rather than them kind of just joining me when I was doing my thing. And I think I just have to set their routine up a bit better
Yes.
in the morning and really like encourage them to do their yoga a bit more because they've been sort of, I don't know, just I don't know, we haven't, I think that I've been like zetting on myself and
Yes.
thinking we can model over a bit, but I think we have to go back to like, this is something special we do together because I used to really love it.
Yeah, fantastic. And it is such an anchor for the family too, because you're involved, they're involved, you're all in it together, but it's individual practice. It's really wonderful and it benefits the whole family. Thank you for sharing. So I just want to finish up too. If you do want to formally learn more, I have a kids yoga training available, and there's an online version where you might want to just learn for your own practice at home, your own practice with children at home, or anyone that you're looking after. And then there's also the professional version. So the just learn at home 50 hours, go at your own self pace is $350. Or the professional version where it's 95 hours, you do the online theory and you come and train with me for 3 days in the end of April here in Brisbane. That's $750. Special just for this presentation is whether you choose 350 hours or the 350 online version only or the full professional training. I'm also throwing in the Ayurvedic psychology certification. And the reason I've paired these two together is I really feel like there's something to be said for adults having more understanding of the mind and lifestyle applications for supporting mental health for children. You may be aware of the struggle and the plight of children in today's society struggling with their mental health and well-being. So the more educated we are with understanding the mind, not just the brain, but actually understanding the nature of the mind and how we can support a healthy, vibrant mental state, healthy, vibrant thoughts as well, the more we'll be able to pass that on to children and guide them from this really grounded, holistic, scientific perspective. So that's the special. If you want to learn more about Ayurveda and yoga for children, you can jump into either the online kids yoga training or the online and in-person training. They're available on my website. I'll send through the link as well in the follow-up with the recording. But it's available on the website now, and you will get that bonus double certification in kids yoga training and in Ayurvedic psychology. Both are certified with IICT, International Institute of Complementary Therapists. And the 95-hour professional yoga training, kids yoga training, is also certified with Yoga Australia as well, and it will account for 95 hours to your total yoga teacher training for your career pathway. So that is it. Anyone have any questions before we sign off? All good to go?
Do you do the Ayurvedic certification separate also, Sammy?
Yeah, so I've also, you mean the Ayurvedic, so I've got Ayurvedic wellness coaching, which is my big Ayurvedic lifestyle training. That is in depth, really, really well rounded, and includes coaching techniques as well. And that's something that you can choose to do self-paced. There's a couple of different tiers as well. You can do the 200 hours or 350 hours. And that is a really great complement to yoga teacher training or any other modality, but also for parenting as well. Like if you're interested in holistic health and Ayurveda, it's not the point of difference between when you go to an Ayurvedic doctor or an Ayurvedic practitioner. They will sit with you for that consult. They'll give you manual therapies, herbs, a comprehensive lifestyle plan, and then away you go. The difference with this modality of Ayurvedic wellness coaching is that you get trained in coaching technique. So a little bit of personal development, understanding the mind, understanding how people operate, the stages of change, and you're trained to work with people and slowly and gradually helping them actually implement the lifestyle application. So we're champions and hype girls for helping people actually live the lifestyle. So learning how to work with and read the individual, map out their understanding of their lifestyle, their goals, their health and wellness goals, work with them in a much more intimate way, not just a consultation, but actually being able to work with them online like this, um, through health consults, through lifestyle planning. There's so many different ways. You can also do educational workshops. You could run online group programs where you're offering education in Ayurveda, like I have done today. Um, so yeah, so in that context, it's different, quite different to practitioners and doctors. We fill a gap in that we like really work closely with people and work more intimately with the mind and more intimately with their complex lifestyle. Because I think that was for me the hardest thing was going, okay, I can see how Ayurveda is going to help me, but my mind is a mess. My life is very complicated right now. Thanks, Leanne. Um, how do I go from here to here? And I'm on my own in this. And if I'm just handed a lifestyle plan, there's this gap in I get that I'm supposed to do that, but how on earth do I get from A to B? And that's where we occupy that unique space. It's funny because even when I explain it to Ayurvedic doctors who are very, very seasoned, there's only one or two that are like, oh, amazing. Yes, people really need help with that. And they send people my way. And then other doctors are like, I don't know, because it's like it's so different to how they work, and they can't comprehend that we do that messy, well, seemingly messy work. But for me, it's like this is the human work, the real time messy part. So, but it's what helps people actually learn, grasp, and implement. And I know personally, one of the markers of when my work is done with a coaching client is they start to coach themselves. They start to self correct in that process where it might be we've worked a few months together. In the first month, it's like I'm telling them what to do. I'm advising them, but this is how you put one foot in front of the other. 3 months in, they'll start getting on coaching sessions and be like, oh, well, I was feeling like this. This all fell apart. Here's how I, got over that. And here's what I did instead. And they're not having breakdowns anymore. They might have life challenges, but they know how to navigate through it and they know what to implement when to maintain that state of equilibrium. And they're like, oh yeah, I do know how to navigate life, and they have coping mechanisms and they know how to deal with their triggers. So that for me is, I guess, Ayurvedic wellness coaching in a nutshell. It's very lifestyle medicine based, very empowering for individuals, very intimate work, but also has the expansion of you can educate, you can run workshops, you can run info sessions, you can, we've got some students that run the Ayurveda component in yoga teacher trainings, teaching on Ayurveda. So lots that you can do with it. Cool. All right. Well, any other final questions? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. Let me know how you go with your kids. If you ever need any help with anything, just reach out and yeah, always here. Thanks so much. Bye.